CFO Dad, and this is the next video in the introduction to my book. In this one, I'm going to talk about Chapter 11. The chapter title is Pigs in the Mud, The Joy of Charitable Giving. And in this chapter, I'll talk about a story from Abraham Lincoln's life where he actually stopped and rescued some piglets that were stuck in the mud. The guy that's with him asked him, why would you do something like that? And he basically answers that he didn't do it for the pigs, he did it for himself because he wanted to be able to live with himself later after doing that. So I'm not comparing charitable organizations to pigs, but I am getting to the point that it is indeed more blessed to give than to receive. And so in this chapter on charitable gifting, I give a few strategies for how you can make your charitable gifting dollars more impactful. One of the strategies I talk about in the chapter is the deduction lumping strategy, which is something that a lot of people are talking about. I did a video a couple months ago about this. And what you basically do is instead of giving what you give in year one, you give what you would give over a 2 or 3 year period in 1 year, and you beef up your itemized deductions for 1 year, and then you take the standard deduction in subsequent years. Now, I realize that's not for everybody. Everybody can't do that, but it can be a very helpful strategy and can save you some tax money if you're able to do the deduction bunching strategy. And it works with the donor advised fund, so I'll talk about that more in the book as well. Another thing I talk about is for people who are in retirement, who are in RMD status. One of the things that we're allowed to do is make a qualified charitable distribution, which basically means that the money goes straight from your IRA to a charity, and that enables you to satisfy your RMD, but without actually realizing the money. So if you're in retirement, if you're in RMD status, you have to start taking required minimum distributions from your IRA, but you don't need the money. You can direct it to a charity and forego recognizing that income. So it's a great benefit for people who are in that situation. And then the last thing I talk about is leaving your IRA to charity. And that's one of the best things you can do. If you're doing estate planning, thinking about what you want to do, how you want to leave your legacy, one of the best things you can leave to charities is your IRA. Because when you do that, the charity doesn't have to pay any taxes on the IRA money. Whereas if you leave your IRA to your kids or to some other heir, they will eventually have to pay taxes on the money. And so it's really better to leave your IRA to charity if you're charitably inclined and you want to do that. And so that's Chapter 11. Chapter 12, the title of the chapter is Training Your Children to Be Adults, Tips on Parenting Finances. And in this chapter, I give some anecdotes from how we have tried to train our children in terms of financial matters. Some of the things that we do, we try to allow our kids to fail. We give them a pretty good bit of control over how they spend their money. And so because of that, because we've given our kids more control over how they spend their money, we've had some tearful experiences when they wanted to buy something but didn't have the money to buy it. Another part of the chapter that I talk about is how we reward our kids. Instead of giving them allowance, we give them opportunities to do jobs and we pay them by the job. And I talk about some stories from my youth and experiences that I had in my first job as a pine cone picker-upper. And so hopefully there's some good wisdom to be gleaned from this chapter. And then I talk about what we're trying to do. The goal of our parenting is to create adults, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're systematically transferring responsibility from ourselves to our children. That's what we're trying to do. And so we try as much as we can to treat our kids like adults because that's what we want them to ultimately be. We don't want them to be children forever. At the same time, we love their childlikeness. And we want to enjoy that time as well. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is to mold them into, well-adjusted adults. The final thing I talk about in this chapter is the Kid Roth IRA strategy, which is basically if you are in the position where you could help your kids get a jump start on retirement savings, a Roth IRA for children is one of the best ways you can do that. And I talk about some strategies for how you can do it. You have to have earned income. There's some things about it that you got to be careful of, but it can be a really great strategy for your kids.